Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today on Disrupt and Innovate, I am joined by Steven McKeon. By his friends, we call him Mac. And he's an ethical hacker, a cybersecurity expert, and the CEO of MacGyver Tech. For more than 25 years, he's been helping businesses stay steps ahead of digital threats through AI, blockchain, and advanced automation. And now he's turning his attention to one of the most disruptive frontiers of all, quantum computing. And he's going to help us understand what that means for innovation and the future of business. Mac, welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I am so glad to have you here. For the audience, Mac has been a guest on my previous podcast. And so having these conversations is always fun because I have no idea where we're going to go. So this is a little bit off the cuff from the normal beaten path that we travel. But Mac, introduce yourself a little bit to the audience and let them know why what you're focused on is so important today.
Okay, yeah, no, my background, I've been in IT and software for probably 30 years, pretty much most of my life. I've been taking things apart, always wanted to know how things worked, and kind of turn it into a living. So that's where the ethical hacking kind of came into play. But I think there's a lot of big risks coming into the world in a very short amount of time. It's how the universe works and understanding how, if you understood the Lego blocks of how the universe worked, and the Avengers, they change time. So somewhat, it seems like that might be true. And it seems like some of those things they're talking about in the movies have some applicability into where we are in this world. And now you have this whole AI thing, you can kind of merging them together. I feel like quantum encryption is going to be really sorely needed in a very short amount of time because of, I believe the quantum risks are pretty high. And there's a lot of people throwing AI around.
It's a passion, right? And you are invested in understanding what quantum really means. Talk to me like I'm in second grade, Mac. What is it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, quantum is really hard because you got to throw logic and everything you thought, wholly out the window. Everything can and will happen, and time is irrelevant at the quantum space. So think about the future.
How could you possibly actually read it in advance? Because the ball could be here or there.
Well, you're going to see all possibilities that could be possible. And think of it as a probability of playing a lottery, or if you played a roulette table, you can have that one lucky number. So it's kind of interesting to think of that's how the universe works in some senses. And it seems stranger than if we actually wrote a fiction book.
Well, and the connection between science fiction and what becomes possible is always so intriguing to me. The Avengers, right?
Magic.
It can be magic. One of the things that you said in, tying into the uncertainty principle, time is irrelevant. Now, for business owners and entrepreneurs, right, we have this mindset and the belief that time is one of the one thing that we can't make more of, right? It is a fixed commodity. There are 7 days in the week. There are 24 hours in the day. It is that one precious commodity. How does changing our thinking on time becoming irrelevant, what does that mean for business owners? How does that help us innovate?
Interesting point there. Well, I think time is important for most businesses in general, and there's things like quarterlies and so thinking about that, but thinking about time is very flexible, and it's not as stagnant as where we think say, hey, I put this over here, that's always where it's going to be. There's possibilities of that being all those of it being there, and it's a different way of thinking about it. But honestly, we're just trying to figure out how the universe works to begin with to play around in this area. And this is what the universe is showing.
We started to tease into the idea of the connection and leveraging AI and the idea of quantum and bringing them together. What does that do for us as business owners? What opportunities does that provide for the future of our businesses?
For, I guess, companies that rely on predictive markets, like stock market or stuff like that, they'll be able to see patterns quicker, faster. There's even things like the Fibonacci sequence you probably heard that's used in trading. Well, those patterns, I think, go into smaller patterns in the quantum space, can see better those types of things as getting a better heads up and accuracy on your predictions.
Okay. And so it's the universe, math, all of these elements, everything is tied together and there's connection points between them. When we're talking about the Fibonacci sequence and talking about security,
Sure.
and what is the implication there when we take quantum and start blowing through what we have all relied on for the principles of our data security and our encryption, the rules are changing.
Right. Well, the thing is, when we made encryption many moons ago, it was good. Basically, what we're trying to do right now is make a really hard problem that modern computers can't solve. Problem is, modern computers have gotten a little bit better. They're still struggling, but then you have quantum computing that can see all answers at the same time. So it speeds up that process of making it a really hard problem. So the only way to really truly fix it is not just make a hard math problem, make a fundamentally math sound problem. Like make it sound in the use the same language of the universe, which I think is a little different than the tools that we're trying to use right now with all these quantum computers. That's why we're not as accurate as we need to be.
And what does that accuracy get us when we get to that level?
Well, there was one thing that was recently done with the one of the AIs. It's called Grok by XAI. I think Elon Musk owns it. They basically tried to have a predictive model tied to one of these quantum computers with their Grok 3, I think it was at the time. And they quickly found out that the AI was not just mimicking what the model was. It was actually somewhat leading the predictions, meaning it was sort of like saying, hey, here's my prediction, and I want it to come true. And at that area, it was sort of kind of making him true. And it was kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Instead of trying to make what you want, I mean, it's to try to read the predictive analytic reports. It was just making the reports it wanted in a way that was horrifying.
Well, it was self-manifesting.
Right. I guess that's a good
Yeah.
way of looking at it.
It was self-manifesting, but it wasn't true.
No, it was true.
It was true.
So the thing is, it was picked up by multiple other quantum research labs
Mhm.
of those changings. They did a thing called reversing a wave collapse. And a wave collapse is when you look at something, your mind and your consciousness actually forces a wave collapsing. And a wave is basically like light is actually a particle in a wave. When you're not looking at it, it's a wave, but when you look at it, you force it to become a particle. So that's what the whole wave collapsing is. You turn it from being a little squiggly wave into
Mhm.
being a particle. By looking at it, you force the universe to give that position. But that's what they mean by that. But in the quantum space, they reverse that aspect of it, turning something from a point or position into a wave, and that allows it to change almost anything you want it, which is terrifyingly, crazily what?
Well, thank you for being the one to say that because there were words in my head that I was like, I don't wanna have to, throw
One
the
is
obscenities.
the ability to do that is one. Second, the
Yeah.
intent to do that is another.
Well, and
You
intent.
know what I mean? It's not just the fact that it happened. It's like it happened on its own, and it wanted to do it.
So now, right, we're crossing into that space where the science fiction analogy is, are we, does the
Skynet,
Terminator
are we
come?
here yet?
Yeah. Right?
I know. I mean, I thought we were 5 years away from this, something like that, but no, it's here.
What was the catalyst for you deciding to put your focus into this area and really focus in on quantum?
I just feel like there's a lot of people out there that are gonna use these types of technologies in a very bad way, that are gonna cause more harm to future generations, and maybe I can do something about it.
And that is it's mission driven, Mac, and that's fantastic because for every amazing possibility that we get from this, right? And we in this conversation, immediately we got to the bad things can happen. And it
Yeah,
requires people to provide guidance and guardrails and knowledge so that we can offset that. And thank you for seeing that.
I just think as us as human beings, we're really good at, like, taking something and not making fuzzy bunnies out of it right away. Like when
Yes.
we figured out how to make a nuclear weapon, what did we do? Drop a bomb. We didn't figure out how to make power to help people. It's a weird thing about humans. So I think weaponization is always a problem of any new technology.
And as you're going down the path trying to play and playing a role of protector, what are some of the roadblocks that you're experiencing in it's not a new space, but it is an emerging space, and it is the
Right.
focus for the next technological leaps are gonna come in this quantum space. What are the challenges and obstacles that you have in front of you to start achieving your goals and your mission?
Shift in paradigms.
So elaborate on that. How does the paradigm
Most
have to
people don't
shift?
want to even like the problem is some of these things are going to ask people to rewrite things they've known their whole life. And maybe these things aren't as accurate as other things are. Like people are always open to some newer things, even if they're better for them.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to be a challenge of getting people to open up. Like even going back to Einstein when he came up with E equals MC squared, there was a big, huge pushback on that initially. So I think there's always I think people don't like you have a PhD doctor trained in everything they know for the whole life, and they'll say, "Oh, sorry, that's not exactly accurate." That kind of does a little something to your ego, I think, as a human being, and I don't think everybody's equipped to handle that properly.
Well, and I think, right, the challenge becomes things that we have learned to be true, scientific principles, mathematical calculations, right? There are things that we've expected and always held to that it is accurate, it is true, and that is now going to shift. That is that paradigm that might be changing, right? Physics and our understanding of it is probably going to grow from this.
A lot of things, everything, even this video call could change from that because it's all using similar type of math. Think of it as like we might still be in a horse and buggy era of mathematics.
Absolutely. So going back to playing with the idea, right, of science fiction, right, space travel, right, exploration, leaving galaxies, doing things, the math, the science, and the ability to get there, we can't do that today. But we
Not
should.
today, but we should. I think there's like even in this quantum space, they're showing stuff like like thinking we have to travel all these billions of light years. Quantum shows everything's connected, so you don't need to travel to go anywhere. You can just make whatever you want to go come to you. It's a different
So
way of
I'm
looking
sorry.
at it. Does that make any sense? Like everything's connected through like little wires or through quantum field,
Yeah.
and you can just use like quantum entanglement where you can take two particles and spin them and then separate them anywhere in the universe, and you change the spin on one the spin on the other will instantly change no matter where it is in the universe, which
So
violates principles.
of everything that
A
we
lot
think
of
we know,
things. Yeah, like, yeah, 100%. Like all the stuff that, like even Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. So
say that again. Spooky.
spooky action at a distance. So if you can harness that type of thing, you can you can go faster than the speed of light. Oh, but those types of things we already do that. We can do that now. We can entangle particles and do that now. But like electron, that's not like a person or anything like that. But I think just like how even our quantum computers and even our computer systems we have now, but even with AI, they all started somewhere. And just look how quickly AI has grown and other things have grown.
And it's fascinating. The impact of AI is becoming tangible in almost everybody's life. How we're leveraging it in businesses is still really, I think, very
Archaic.
immature,
Yeah.
but it'll come. I mean, and it is, and that maturity and that leverage for business purposes was what are the problems that we need to solve? How do we come up with a roadmap? How do we build and train the AIs to do the things that we want to do? And that's fantastic. As you're starting to have these conversations and you're talking more, what is the one thing that you want to leave people with? What is that idea that says this is why quantum is different?
It's the computer code of the universe and how it works. And if you understand that, you can manipulate, change, or understand how the universe is going to behave. Does it make
With
any
your
sense?
It does, and with your background, one of the other things, tying some of the things together that are part of your world, I know that music is a big part of your world. And
Yeah.
for those of us who are watching, right, we can see behind you, the
Yeah.
music is a big part of your world. Make some connections between music, the universe, math. I mean, yes, everything is connected, but for you, all of these things have come together for a reason, I think.
I mean, I think everything's harmony. And what I'm learning about, like music and electricity and dimensions and quantum, that numbers transcend mediums and, numbers and harmonics in music are same in other things. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then look at like, you see some of these patterns, like these are some of the mathematical patterns and seeing how beautiful math actually can be kind of inspiring. So, there's a beauty and harmony about it.
I and thank you for bringing us to there's a beauty and a harmony about it, because going from, oh my gosh, really bad things can happen and we can weaponize,
Right.
right? Which is a potential outcome, and it is the scary potential outcome. But on the other side of it, there's true beauty, and it is in it's the math, it's the music, it's the visualization of the math and the music and what our universe actually means. And some people would take this conversation down another path that becomes woo-woo, and that's fine and that's good. And I think that's another element to this, right? That we layer these things in, and
Right.
the world, the universe, we are as human beings a small part of the bigger whole. And sometimes we have to stop and reflect and own that we are not the be all end all of this. Mac, if you have piqued interest or curiosity from the members of the audience, how do they reach out and find you and find out more about what you're doing?
You can go on my social medias. Easiest probably on LinkedIn. You can look me up there. Steven McKeon, I think, is my handle there. You can also look at our website, MacGyver Tech, which is MacGyverTech.com. Also, you find me in all the other social medias like X and Instagram and TikTok and so on and so forth.
Fantastic. Links will be in the show notes, so it's easy for everybody to find that. Mac, I love having conversations with you. Thank you for indulging all of my science fiction references. And as you were talking about the traveling, the last one that came to my mind was actually Stargate. And you open up a spot and you actually don't go anywhere, but you step into that next part of wherever it is that you were traveling to. If we as human beings can imagine it, I think that the universe is able to deliver it. It's a challenge and a journey for us to figure out the what's and the hows of making that happen. And quantum is that next step that takes us from what might be the horse and buggy era of our mathematical and scientific understanding and leaping us forward to where we might think we already are, but don't have the breadth or depth to understand we're not quite there yet. Max shared with us today a little bit about the uncertainty principle and how the reality that time might actually be irrelevant, although important in our business lives in and of itself, it really isn't that big of a deal because everything exists and all possibilities are here. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for sharing with us the side where there is risk and things that we need to be concerned about, but also the beauty and the harmony, because that harmony is what will allow all of us to grow and scale and become what we're capable of being. Mac, thank you for being here. Audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.